Hi everyone, thanks for being with me again today. I'm going to talk about kids being locked up. Now, this is a subject which concerns all of us here at the Child Protection Party, and I'm kind of assuming will concern you as well, primarily because this is the way our society chooses to treat children. And it's not just older children as well, it's younger children who tend to be locked up in detention. Now, what has happened recently, according to a report in the Daily, which has come about through another report from the Guardian of Children and Young People, that we apparently are failing to care for those children that are the most vulnerable of all. Not just young, but those children who find themselves locked up in a detention centre, often, as it appears, for not necessarily committing any crime. It has been the case in the past that children have been locked up simply because there didn't seem to be a place to put them, and their behaviour was so extreme that the only way the department believed it could keep children safe was to lock them away. Now, I don't care who you are, it's not appropriate that we treat children in that way, and it's particularly not appropriate that the government, who's supposed to be taking care of them, that have children rather, in their best interest, should also be doing the same. So here we have, in this report, detained children locked in cells with junk food. Now, to be fair, I know that there are a lot of parents out there who just feed their kids junk food, and I get that, but we would expect there to be some sort of sense as to appropriateness about what children are going to be eating, particularly when they're in the care of the government, which has a lot of money that they could spend, particularly looking after the physical well-being of these children that they've taken into care. In this particular article, though, it talks about staff shortages at Adelaide Youth Detention Centre, and has led to children being locked alone in their rooms for extended periods, eating fast food and microwave dinners on the floor and on their beds. The centre's watchdog, that is The Guardian, has declared. On average, 9 out of 21 required workers are not rostered on those 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. shifts. Reid described the situation as a staffing crisis that had led to children being locked in their rooms for extended periods of time. Now, I can tell you now that if there was a parent out there who was locking their child in a room for hours and hours on end without any real justification, not that I can think of any justification that would be needed, but particularly if you're locking children away like that, then I would suggest that the department would be on your tail telling you that that's inappropriate parenting. However, because the government does it, apparently it's not all that inappropriate, and it seems to be okay. And it's not until you and I make a stand against these sorts of behaviours and highlight them, as they've been done in the Daily, that perhaps change will hopefully at some point take place. But at the moment, it seems to be okay for the department to treat children in this manner. The writer claimed that most nights last financial year, children were forced to eat dinner alone while locked in their rooms instead of in communal dining areas, a requirement which was initially rationalised to minimise risk of children being infected during COVID pandemic. Now, I don't think that necessarily locking kids away during the pandemic was necessarily a bright idea, but apparently they think for whatever reason it was. But the Department of Human Services said children only ate in their room for 6 months from December 26 last year, for 6 months. I just want to know what other households. If you've got a household with 4 or 5 kids in it, does that mean then you isolate all of those kids from each other because of COVID? It just doesn't seem to make all that much sense for me. I think that this was just a means of social control of these children, and this was an excuse they used in order to control them, because clearly when they're locked in their rooms, they're not likely to get up to any mischief, and less work for the staff who have to look after them. The Department of Human Services said children only ate in their room for 6 months from December 26 last year, that the requirements brought in following SA Health advice to reduce the risk of children becoming infected by COVID-19. I don't believe that. According to Reed's report, workers attempted to appease or placate isolated children by giving them fast food dinners. So clearly they thought that that was a great idea, except... and they would hold a pizza night, which was really nice, very thoughtful of them, being given microwave meals that were not always properly thawed. And so sometimes they would, as it says here later, they would store the food simply because they weren't too sure as to whether the food was edible, which was provided by the department. In an opinion piece, Reed's predecessor, Penny Wright, described the situation as an emergency for the future of our most young people. Reed wrote that on most days in term 1 this year, Kalana Tapa did not have sufficient staff to run the centre in accordance with ordinary regimes and routines. She found the number of incidents of children self-harming or at risk of self-harming doubled, to a point where her office believes that nearly 2 in 5 incidents at the centre involved a young person who self-harmed and was at risk of doing so. I have serious concern for the young people in Kalana Tapa who told us that most of their time in the centre was spent locked in rooms with limited rehabilitation support or access to recreation. I noticed that operating and managing a service and care model in a youth detention centre is complex and challenging, but as a community, we expect better than that. Vulnerable, isolated, lonely, and often traumatised children and young people deserve better. And we concur, because we should be looking for more appropriate ways to take care of these kids. I mean, what does it say about the people that are working there, and management in particular, if they're unable to find appropriate ways to care for these children? It probably means that they just don't understand the therapeutic needs of the children. It may mean that they're just damn friggin' lazy and choose simple methods like locking kids away, buying them takeaway meals, trying to placate them with a pizza night, whatever it is that they're trying to do in order to satisfy their own organisation's inadequacies in terms of not understanding how to work with traumatised kids. And in doing so, they traumatise the children even further. I guess the point for me is, how is it that they are able to demonstrate a caring, nurturing, protective environment when they are treating kids like they are criminals? It is wrong, it is abusive, it re-traumatises children that have been through a lot of trauma in their lives probably anyway, and it is so damaging that we need to hold those to account who implement these systems. Let us know what you think. Firstly, if you're watching this on YouTube, could you please subscribe and ring the bell so you can get further notifications from CPP. And if you have issues and you'd like to talk a little bit more about these, then you can email us at, I'll just bring up the email address. You can email us at this email address and let us know whether you've got any concerns, any issues that you think you're facing or your children might be facing that you wish to talk to us about so that we can make them public. That is what we do. So just like to thank everybody for being with me. Just take care, look after yourselves, and keep everyone around you safe.